football a game of passion, skill, and sheer determination. But what actually happens if you cross the line into the doping side? Today we'll be trying to uncover the shocking cases of Paul Pogba, André Onana, and Mykhailo Mudryk, because they were banned because of having used illegal substances that have been banned from the game of football. But the big question remains, were they guilty? We remain to see. Or are they actually victims of an unfair situation? Stay tuned, because what you will hear might actually change how you view this game of football forever or in the short term. Before we dive into the scandals, a big question is, what is doping in the terms of FIFA and the World Anti-Doping Agency, which actually stands for WADA? But the big question is, how do they conduct also the test to determine who is actually in the doping side and who didn't dope? So to start off, what is doping? It's the use of prohibited substances or drugs or stimulants or methods to enhance performance, which might range from testosterone to anabolic steroids to diuretics and stimulants, just to mention a few. So FIFA actually takes this seriously, as they do conduct in competition and out of competition testing. This means that they might test the players during or mid games, or they might test them during their training sessions, or actually the players might get a knock on their door. It's WADA, we are here to collect your blood, we are here to collect your urine samples. Sometimes you can use the notion of anytime, anywhere, and if you actually test positive, FIFA has this rule called strict liability, where despite it being intentional or accidental in some cases, you are responsible for your actions. So to kickstart off our video today, we start with the main case of Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba, no words to describe him. From his days at Manchester United before leaving to Juventus, coming back, winning the Europa League with Manchester, FA Cup, he's a serial winner, and actually going on to win the World Cup. He's a midfield maestro in his trade, and now unfortunately bears the tag of a player banned for doping. In September of 2023, Paul Pogba happened to have tested positive for testosterone doping, which most people, if you actually use the gym, you might actually hear some people asking you, are you natty or are you juiced? Some people are on TRT treatment, which I am leaning towards, because Pogba might have actually been on TRT treatment, something we might never know. But after a match against Udinese, Pogba's routine urine test came back positive for elevated levels of testosterone, which raises eyebrows. But actually, was it true for him to be guilty at that point, or was he set up? As we actually know, Pogba and his brothers have had some family issues, which begs the question, was he guilty or was he set up? So Pogba denies having taken anything illegal. He claimed if he actually did take something illegal, it was because of an accidental ingestion, possibly from his supplements, which I mentioned earlier. He might have had some supplements maybe for his TRT treatment, but under FIFA rules, it doesn't matter if it was accidental or intentional. Pogba bore the biggest ban of 4 years, but he actually went back and appealed at the Court of Arbitration for Sports, CAS, which later reduced this sentence to 18 months after the appeal, which makes Pogba liable to come back to the game next month. He's actually been training in the meantime as he looks at his options of which team will bring him back into the game. But should footballers be more cautious about what they consume, or is FIFA being too harsh in this case? We move on to the next case of André Onana, from his high days at Ajax to his even higher days at Inter Milan, pushing his peak season and going to the UEFA Champions League with Inter Milan, which gave him the big money move to Manchester United and etched his name among the football's most expensive goalkeepers behind Kepa and Alisson. But then Onana's case is actually weird. It gets crazy after this. Onana's wife comes out and says she gave him the medicine. So uncommon for someone in her pregnancy to actually give their husband some painkillers. Food for thought. So during his Ajax day, Onana tested positive for the banned substance, which was called I will cut this part, don't worry, don't worry. Onana's crime, he tested positive for furosemide, a drug that is often used to mask other drugs. But was his wife on the right giving him the medication to mask his pain? So having taken this pill by accident, which is an accident because the wife actually gave it to him, FIFA acknowledged that it was an accident and reduced the actual sentence from 9 months to from 12 months to 9 months. But should the player's intent actually matter, or is strict liability the only way to actually find players culpable of doping? On to the next case of Mykhailo Mudryk. As recent as December 2024, this last year, he tested positive for a drug called Meldonium. This drug has actually been banned for the last 8 years, going back to 2016, if my math is correct. So this case is still under investigation, but if found guilty, Mudryk actually will face the 4 years of the ban, seeing to it that this drug has been banned not only to footballers but all athletes since 2016. What does this mean for the 23-year-old? Mudryk was on the rise from his Shakhtar days to his big money move to Chelsea. He's been facing some issues, yes, but then you take a step back and ask yourself, did he actually take this drug intentionally? Or is he being set up also in regards to everything that's happening in Mudryk's life? But if he actually is found guilty, it will be 4 years out of the game, which means he has to come back at 27, probably at 28, because he'll have to find a team by then. And then, will he come back and actually pick? Because this might be similar to a case of a player rupturing their Achilles tendon. They struggle to come back. We have seen this with people like Loftus-Cheek and Christian Pulisic. But this drug actually stays in the system for months. So look at it this way. Mudryk might have ingested this drug unintentionally, by accident, during his days at Shakhtar. But then it begs the question, why wasn't the positive coming back during his tests back then? And if he's actually ingested it during his days at Chelsea, is he being sabotaged? You might never know. But then we look at the bigger picture. FIFA is trying to fight doping on all levels, with the actual thing being they need to see the game is clean. They need to stick to the WADA rules, which limit athletes to using banned substances and methods. So it's a weird case, and it's a sad story for Mudryk if he's actually found guilty. Something that I do hope doesn't end up to be that he's guilty. And if found guilty, I do hope that he will have a reduced sentence, because 4 years out of the game is too much time for a player to lose. He might actually have to retire at this point. But then, how does FIFA get to catch the doping cases? In the year report in 2021-2022, they actually conducted 21 samples which were control tests. That's 2,921 tests conducted out of a possible focus group of 5,596 samples collected. They collect the samples through urine and blood. But then you ask yourself, of this control test, why did 6 players only test positive out of such a big focus group? However you may decide to view this, it's only a tiny fraction of footballers caught doping. But is FIFA doing enough? Or do more players actually slip through the cracks? It's a case we have to look at critically and closely, bearing in mind there's an active case we have to follow as details are still emerging. But on to the next thing, which is, in the past, have there been legends who were actually caught doping? Might shock you, but yeah, we have Maradona in the 1994 World Cup, have Pep Guardiola in 2001, and Rio Ferdinand back in 2003. So you have Maradona, the World Cup legend, sent back home during the 1994 World Cup because he actually tested positive for ephedrine, a stimulant, which makes you question how he used to warm up during games with his untied laces and how his dopamine levels were elevated during his juggling and teasing up the fans to get them warmed up for the game. It's a case you have to look at critically, but then it's a case that you have to let slip through the cracks, as he is a legend of the game and actually passed away. May he rest in peace. On to Pep Guardiola. After a game, his days at Brescia in Italy 2001. After this game, he tested positive for nandrolone, a stimulant also. But then you ask yourself, someone of Pep Guardiola's caliber, with his position of the DMF, the 6, the quarterback, which actually birthed Busquets and other names that play that register role. Why did he need to use a banned substance way back in the days where we might not have been aware that doping actually happens? But then he's not the only one on the list. We have Rio Ferdinand, legend of the game too, Manchester United legend, very good pundit for TNT, for Champions League, and for his own podcast that Rio presents. We don't know actually which substance he got to get banned for, but he was actually banned from the game for 8 months. This is just a tip of the iceberg. I might have missed a few cases here and there, but I'm just highlighting the doping violations that can actually occur at all levels of the game, be it the legends, be it the pros currently, be it the young stars coming through the academies into the pro football. This thing has affected most of the celebrated players, tainted their legacies in some ways, because when you bear the brand of having doped, then big question marks arise as to how you've been performing over the years, going back to the inception of you actually starting the game. So we'll keep a close eye on Mudryk as the story unfolds, and hopefully we'll have answers as to how doping will be fought with going forward. But then we actually want FIFA to tighten the grip on finding the doping cases. Catch you in the next one.